joining us today. I know it's after lunch. We're hopefully going to provide you with some really applicable things you can take back to your schools. So I'm Jody Grannon. I'm the principal of Parkview Elementary School in Bradley County, Tennessee. This is my wonderful team over here. This is the first year we've gotten to do this, and we are really excited about sharing things that we've learned. We've learned from a lot of you guys, and we want to share some things as well. So it's been really exciting to see my teachers like here at this conference and seeing the excitement that they're having, ready to go back to school to share with everyone else. So I hope that you all feel the same way. That's really awesome. So we opened, our school is fairly new in 2010, and it opened with a STEM focus. I've been there 8 years, and when I came, we talked about, like, is this the focus or not? And everybody was, yes, we are doing this. So we really made sure that our mission was aligned, and it was really awesome to see them come together and work really hard. And we applied the first year to the STEM to be designated, and we were short. And I tell you that because if that happens to you, you just keep going and you keep trying, and it makes you stronger and better. So then the next year, we were able to become a STEM-designated school, and boy, did that feel good. So I'm really proud of these ladies. They worked hard. They've gone out and done professional development. We've had the meat manufacturing. We've had the TSI in workforce. We've had STEM fellows. I mean, they have really gone out and found some really great professional development and brought it back to their classrooms, and I can't wait for them to share with you. I'm going to pass this over to Buffy Frazier. She is our Title I teacher at this school, so she's going to tell you a little bit about our demographics.
Hi. I just want to explain a little bit about our school so you know where we're coming from. It may be a lot like your demographic. It may not. And like she said, we're a fairly new school, so people would think, hey, they have all the great stuff, all the equipment. No. New schools do not come equipped with anything. So over the years, we've used Title I funds, we've used grants just to kind of fund things and get things going. We're over 50% free and reduced lunch. We have a pretty high special ed population. We have 2 special ed teachers. We have 3 special ed pre-Ks. So we have a lot of things, a very transient population. We're right on the border of our city, so we have a lot of kids who go back and forth between us and the city school system. So we have a lot of things that sometimes can work against us when we're trying to do these things. And so we just wanted you to know a little bit about us, where we're coming from, and all right, ladies, who's starting it off?
So when we went on this journey, and we said we're going to be a STEM school, we really had to figure out what is STEM, what is a PBL. And a lot of times, and there's nothing wrong with it, and you guys have maybe seen this before, it's a very popular way of explaining it, but when it's a dessert, it's a project. There's nothing wrong with projects. They're needed and there's a place. But when you are doing a PBL that enriches your entire curriculum and pulls in all of your standards, it needs to be your main course. And so I would encourage you, we're going to send this out, but just kind of look over this. This basically tells you what is that PBL, and it is your main course. And it does run cross-curricular.
So they kept telling me, you know, project's different than problem-based, and that just confused me. This helped me understand better than anything I've seen the difference between the two. So has anybody ever done HelloFresh? Okay, a few of you. Yeah, on teacher salary, not always. But HelloFresh is a company to where they send you, and we've got videos linked. You can watch them later. We didn't know if we'd have time to show them to you. But HelloFresh is a company where they send you a box of ingredients, right? And they have a card with it to say, this is what it should look like when it's finished. That's your project-based learning. You give students the materials. They all get the same thing. You say, here you go. This is what it should look like when it's done. That's a project. But problem-based is more like the TV show Chopped, because what they do there is on Chopped, they give you ingredients, and
you get to come up with the solution. You get to come up with your own invention, your own creation, and you get to be creative and innovative, and that's what we do with a problem-based learning. Your culminating task should look different with both of these. That's kind of the takeaway there. The HelloFresh, your culminating task is all the same. Your CHOP TV show, your culminating task is going to be very different.
This is Sophie. Just an
So when we talk about a high-quality PBL, and my name is Alicia Bright, I teach third grade at Parkview. I think I forgot that the first time, but that's okay, I'll tell you now. What a high-quality PBL has to have is basically this, and this is the gold standard. When you have all of these pieces and parts, you will be able to include your curriculum, cross-curricular, pulling in your math, pulling in your real-world problems. And so when you look at this, we need to have, and we're going to go over this a little bit piece by piece in the next few slides, but you have to have a challenging problem that is real-world. You need to make it relevant, not only to your community by pulling in community partners, but you need to make it relative and something that the kids are excited about fixing. Well, I can figure out how to do this. I can make my world a better place. It needs to have sustained inquiry. It needs to have authenticity. The students need to have a voice. I always say it's a little bit uncomfortable at first because I'm used to being the driver, right? But I want to put my kids in the driver's seat, and I want to be the teacher that sits beside them and helps them through it. But I don't want to give them the solution. I don't want to hold their hand. I want them to be able to pull from their own minds, their own creativity, and take charge of their learning. That's your buy-in piece. When they feel like this is what I'm learning and I'm doing it myself, then you have that engagement, your behavior problems go down, and your PBL is rich. Reflection, have them reflect. You can reflect with them. There's a lot of pieces to that, to critique and revise. That's a big piece, and sometimes as educators, we run out of time. Can you imagine that? Anybody got lots of extra time in your classrooms each day? I don't either, but it's really an important part to do that critique and to do that revision and have that public product not only given to the class itself, like the kids get to see what each group made, but invite your other people from your school. Let the other kids see. Pull in some community partners to judge. There's lots of ways that you can have that public product and show what your school's doing, and then you're gonna get a lot more feedback from your community and help. And so that is our gold standard PBL.
Hi, I'm Amanda Taylor, and I teach 4th grade at Parkview. And what's funny kind of about my career is I've taught 1st and 4th, but I've done that twice in different settings. So 1st and 4th, so I've got some primary experience and 4th grade experience. That's what I'm in now. And then I did a kindergarten thing for 2 months and realized that that wasn't for me. You have to have a challenging problem or question. So we were able to go through the STEM, one of the STEM fellowships, and our 4th grade question was, as an agricultural engineer, how can I design a way for Farmer Mitchell and his cows to safely cross the creek to access the entire pasture? And that whole PBL, and we'll try to make that make sense for you in just a moment, was based off of that question. So we researched things. The question has to be at the top, and it has to drive your instruction. And down at the bottom, it says this is the point where you narrow down your focus to the main problem or project, because that's okay too, that you want your students to work on. You want to make sure that your question connects to the real world beyond school, and projects should feel real to the student. So I'm not going to do my question on something in a big city because we don't live in a big city. But when I'm talking about Farmer Mitchell and his cows, that makes perfect sense to them.
Like she said, we have to make it relate. I don't learn well when I don't relate to what the topic is. So same way with children. Our 3rd grade problem, let me go back to that slide. Our third grade question was, students were given real archived local news articles. This is not the question, sorry. Thank you. How can we prevent or decrease the likelihood of another dangerous rock slide from blocking the Ocoee River Gorge roadway, endangering both drivers and road workers? We live about 10 minutes, our school is about 10 minutes from the Ocoee River. That makes sense to our kids. They know a lot about the Ocoee River. Most have been there on a field trip. Some of them live really close. So it's something that's relatable to them. They know where it is. They know a lot about it. So we took actual news articles. Now we can go back to that slide. We took actual news articles from several years ago when there was an actual rock slide. So we took an actual event that happened, said, how can we prevent this from happening again? Thank you. Okay. So that actual archival footage from the local news stations, lots of the students were familiar with it. It allowed students who helped to help explain possible career options even. We talked to an engineer that, it was an environmental engineer that had been in school to do that, and she talked about how, what she had learned, you know, what kind of classes she had to take. So we try to throw that career awareness in wherever we can. The externship that Ms. Bright and I did last summer was called the Meat Manufacturing Externship. Manufacturing, we teach third grade. It's like, what am I going to do with this? We didn't really even know when we went into it, but we knew we wanted to learn more and understand more about STEM instruction. And we came out with some really neat and really valuable lessons learned from that externship. It was through TSIN. Look for those summer classes because they're so valuable, and that's some time that you might have to put into that. But this particular externship, most of it was online, but we actually went into a manufacturing company. They sent us all different places. And the one we went to was in Chattanooga, about 40 minutes from where we live, and they made buckets. We learned real quick, don't call them a bucket. They're a pail. But these pails, you just don't think about all the moving parts to make anything. They started out with everything you see around you is manufactured. It's made. And, you know, a lot of times with our kids, we expect every student, you're going to go to college, and we encourage them. Well, that's not in the cards for every one of our kids, especially not in some of our school systems. They told us about all kinds of different avenues that these kids can take, and every moving part we saw in that manufacturing facility pretty much made more money than she and I do. So these kids have so many opportunities, and it opened my mind to be able to see there are other opportunities other than a four-year school for these kids. And anyway, that was something. This is where this came from. They taught us to, you know, go through this model and make things more real for these students.
Okay, so I want to talk about the fourth grade labs and research. So when you're talking to a fourth grader, I'm sure maybe you guys have figured this out, but I did not, and you call something like, well, we're going to have labs today, and they're like, okay, let's do that, and you call it that appropriate scientific name, they are all into it. And then when we are looking at things on our Chromebooks, call that research because that's what it is. And so with the labs, that was more of a hands-on, as you can imagine, what a lab is. And we did erosion in the labs. We did erosion, we did physical weathering, chemical weathering, because we had to talk about erosion to get the cows over the creek to get to the other side of the pasture. So that's still part of our driving force, is that question. You want to talk about fifth grade?
I'm Cassondra Bishop. I teach fourth grade now, but this is my first year in fourth grade. The previous years I have been in fifth grade, and I cannot see that. So the fifth grade question on this particular PBL that we're kind of walking you through was, how can we as engineers design, build, and test an invention that will solve a problem that exists in the real world and make the lives of people better and more productive? So fifth grade invention convention is a big deal at our school. We start this process of this PBL in January, and it's typically wrapped up by our spring parent-teacher conferences so that they're on display in our gym for the community to see, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end. But we take this PBL in steps. So as they go through the design and research process, they have to first solve their problem. And we have stipulations on what your problem can be. Like, it cannot be something that's already invented. And if it is something that's already invented, you have to come up with how you're going to improve that invention for us. And then we give them a few weeks to do that, and then they conference with a 5th grade teacher to just kind of keep them on track. And then once they've all got through that first step of the design and research process, they move on to the next one. And then they design on a piece of paper. They have a packet that they're working through all of this. They design it on a piece of paper, and then the last step is that they actually build a prototype. And so we're coaching them through this. They're doing most of it on their own, but they are conferencing with us to make sure that they're on the right track as they go through the steps of the design process.
You've got to have collaboration and project management. With the students, you have to get buy-in from them because they, I don't know if you guys teach 4th grade, but if you don't have them bought into your question or what you're wanting to do, they'll cut you down real fast. Collaboration, and that's something as a teacher sometimes it's hard to give up because you actually want to make your students like the teachers and the speakers. So in my classroom, I have them in tables. And as we learned earlier today, we were talking with some other teachers from our county about how when you stand up, that you typically are more engaged in what you're doing. So we have to push our chairs in and we stand up around the table in the classroom. Now, this was outside because this was extremely messy. And I had to let go of that too. But anyway, so you have to give them that opportunity to talk to each other. And like I said, when you start calling things labs, research, and you make them feel like they're just a part of this educational process and we're trying to solve this problem, they really will do the right thing. I very rarely have any type of behavior issues during collaboration and the project because they want to do it. That's what's so awesome about PBLs. It's something that they want to do. You've made it interesting for them, and you're covering your Tennessee standards at the same time. So you've got to get buy-in from them. Also, what was really neat, when we finished our PBL, we were able to get the guy from the FDA to come in and talk to the kids, and he actually did. Like, he was really excited to do that. He came in, he sat down, they were able to ask him questions. I mean, he went over their projects pretty much with each one of them. And then we got the SRO to do what he couldn't do. So, hey, we involved everybody. Okay, collaboration roles. I did not come up with this. Someone much smarter than me did. But I feel like they're pretty much self-explanatory, and you can go back later and read them. What I do want to call your attention to, the timekeeper. That, to me, is the hardest thing, because when I see them learning and I see them, like, asking questions and talking to their peers, I just want to let it go, but you can't, because then you'll run out of time. So that's always my issue. And then I really loved this last one. I never thought about it. A harmonizer. And that's the kid who is trying to stay positive through the whole thing. And if there's any type of issue between, or argument or debate even between the other kids, they try to make the atmosphere positive to reach a consensus among the group. I implemented that this year, and it really changed things because, what's really interesting is when you get the student that is not naturally a harmonizer, but they know that's what they have to do in the group. So that was fun to watch. Closing.
So that reflection piece is a really big deal for our kids. Students and teachers always need to be reflecting on their learning. When I walk away from a lesson that I've taught, what worked, what didn't work, how do I need to modify this, what are my next steps? And so children need to be able to do that too. Our students need to have that ability to reflect, not only on their work, but on the work of their peers. And so I came up with a little thing, and I didn't come up with it, but I implemented it rather, glows and grows. And that's like a pretty way of saying, I'm going to give you at least 2 compliments. Now, you have beautiful blue eyes. That's awesome. But that's not a glow. It needs to be content driven. Okay, I really enjoyed all of your research, and I saw how much work you did. Great job. That would be an appropriate glow. And then a grow, which is one that you kind of like, oh, yikes. I want them to say something, but in a nice way. And you have to teach that. You have to model that. But what I found happening after implementing this 2 or 3 times, it even impacted the discourse throughout the PBL when they were talking with each other. I love your idea, but can we improve it by doing this? And I heard that from 3rd graders. They're 8 and 9. And they were able to do it. And it was enriching to the discourse and seeing that I've actually, not even thinking that big, taught them how to work through these problems just like adults would in an industry setting. And so we're giving them those skills to be successful when they do go out and they do get their jobs. We're learning it young. So that reflection piece allows us to teach them how to talk to each other in an appropriate way. And that's my glows and grows. And I loved that piece. And I think it's very important to teaching some of those skills through collaboration.
And then the end result of your PBL is that you have that public product, and you can see 3rd grade's public product there, but I'm going to emphasize on the 4th and the 5th grade because those are the ones that I have worked directly with. But for our erosion PBL that we just completed, in the bottom picture, that is Chase. He is agricultural engineer at our local USDA office. And so this was actually a problem that he was having to solve at the same time that our students were working through this problem. And so Miss Taylor had all the things out. They had Orbeez, is that what they're called? Legos, pasta noodles. I mean, her room was a disaster learning zone, right? But they had all kinds of things, pipe cleaners, popsicle sticks that they could work with. And we had just disposable lasagna pans off of Amazon, and we put the dirt in there, and the kids got to figure out how to represent the water, and they got to design their bridge. And then whatever they designed had to support a toy tractor and a toy cow. That's how we tested their design. And then Chase, like she said, actually came in, talked to the students about his career, which was a different learning opportunity for our kids. And he told the kids how he solved the problem, and then each kid walked through, and over 50% of our kids got to share how they chose to solve the problem with him. And so this was a lot of coaching behind the scenes on our part also, and that's a great way to work in your writing piece. So Miss Taylor is also our 4th grade writing teacher, and she had them write a paper on erosion. And so those kids had already wrote about their project and wrote about what erosion is. And when they had to talk to Chase, they were knowledgeable because they had already done that research and preparation. And then you're also covering your speaking and listening standards there. And then Invention Convention, I was our 5th grade writing teacher, and they would have to kind of almost write me a sales pitch so that when people walked around through our Invention Convention, they had already written that sales pitch, and they knew how they had made their project, and they knew why they wanted you to buy it or that type of stuff. And then why should you use a PBL? We have covered so many standards. So also with that erosion, our math teacher jumped in, and we covered area and perimeter. Well, right now, the cows can't get over the creek, so they only have this much area to graze. But if I can get them over the creek, then they have this much area to graze. and then you got your writing standards, speaking and listening, so many areas that you can cover through a PBL. It gets your students involved in the real world. So Invention Convention, these kids are passionate about their projects. They're excited because this is something that's important to them. This is a problem that them or their family face every day. Student engagement, everybody's involved in learning. Ms. Grannon's going to talk in just a minute about how she has seen our test scores improve since we've been implementing PBL and STEM into our curriculum. And I thought I had that on there, but all right, so who should you get involved in your PBL? So obviously your teaching team is a big portion. I'm getting there. Your specialty area teachers, our specialty area teachers are always asking us, how can we support you in the classroom? Because, you know, we still have a curriculum that we have to follow and we have to teach. So utilize those people to help you get different parts of these projects done. Professionals from the community, you saw Chase, but also our fifth graders. We started our own Shark Tank, and it's a pretty big deal. We get our business partners, school board members. We utilize the CTE teachers at our local high schools, people from the central office. Our supervisor of elementary ed always comes. And these kids are judged by their teachers as the teachers walk through, and then the top 5 or 6 go on to Shark Tank and present to the community partners. And we've never had a community partner turn us down. I mean, unless it's like they had a meeting or a family emergency. They're always eager to come and be a part of Shark Tank. They want to be involved in your school. And then our students and peers walk through, and it's so cute to see the 5th graders telling the kindergartners about their project. And like my 4th graders are excited to do Invention Convention next year when they get in the 5th grade. So Ms. Greenan, you want to?
Oh, I want to add one more thing. When you're starting the PBL, I think, in my opinion, I had a really hard time teaching erosion. I mean, how am I going to make that interesting for the students? So that's why I chose to do a PBL, and then it all links back to my erosion standards because that's what I have, you know, a hard time teaching.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit. When we first started out on our STEM journey, there's not a ton of research on test scores improved. There's a lot of other kind of data as far as discipline, but I was like, so if we're doing all this, are my test scores going to go up? And luckily, Vanderbilt's helped out a lot with that. But in the past couple years, since I've been there, our TVAS scores have been really great. I mean, we've been for 4s and 5s since pretty much I've gotten there. Now, our achievement scores, we still have some work to do because we grow them good, but we've still got to get to that standard. I will say on achievement, our ELA have gone up. It went up 10 percentage points from 2021 to 2022. Our math also went up between 2 and 10 percentage points. And our science scores have been above the state for many years, and we're one of the top schools in our district for our science scores. So, I mean, it's working.
And on those STEM professionals, keep a live document. So, like, I read a story in my curriculum about bees. And so because a 2nd grade teacher had wrote down a lady's number and had that on our Google STEM drive, I knew of a STEM professional that I could call to make that story come to life. And we're having STEM Career Day next week. And like Chase was so excited to come to our school. He's coming to STEM Career Day next week and bringing more equipment from the USDA. So keep a note somewhere so that multiple people in your school can access those STEM professionals. So we want to give you an opportunity to collaborate with people in your same grade level, just people from your school. So we're going to give you a couple copies of our PBL template. And we have a QR code also that you can scan and access a few samples of PBLs that we have done at our school, this presentation, and then you can make a copy of that PBL planning form. yeah, it's been simplified just a little bit to what we felt was most important. But as you think about STEM professionals, maybe that just maybe somebody, your family at your church or a friend. Standards, we like to use standards that we find difficulty teaching. So Miss Taylor had done erosion before, but she didn't feel like her kids had grasped the concept. So we wrote a PBL around it. And then your driving question, how can you tie in all your content? And what will their end result be? And if you have questions as you're collaborating or thinking, we would be happy to try to answer those.
And I do want to add, one of the major things on this PBL template, the first thing that we ask you to do is find a STEM professional. Because a lot of times for me, well, I know my standard, but I don't know what needs to be fixed about that. And so if I can find someone, Google is great if you don't have someone already, people near me, engineers near me, find that STEM professional. They can give you a problem. Parents in your school, that's a great point. They will help you come up with a problem that you can then write a driving question from. And I think sometimes getting going is almost the hard part. Once I figure out, okay, here's where I want to go. Oh, here's the problem. Then I can make it go. And the rest of it is very easy because we're reading something on grade level. There's my ELA standards. They're going to present it. There's my speaking and listening. So you can pull in all of your curriculum easy after you get that driving question and that STEM professional nailed down. So don't feel like that's kind of the hard part, but don't feel defeated by it because once you get there, it flows very quickly. Yes, we're open to questions. You can use that. This is our Parkview template. When we started the STEM process, we knew that we needed to create a culture that K-5 was very similar. And so we started this, and each grade level starts with this template. And then they build off of that. They may not use every single piece every single time, but they have a guideline and a template that they can go to immediately in our STEM drive that gets them started. And that way we build that culture of commonality, both in the way that we speak to our students about STEM, so that vocabulary is very deliberate. And we try to have that design thinking process in our kindergarten classroom all the way to our 5th grade classroom. It is the same design process. They start in kindergarten with that STEM mindset, and by the time they get to 5th grade, they create their own invention. And that growth in STEM from K-5, I think, is our biggest, congratulations to ourselves that we were able to see that through, because that is the hard part when you're building those first few years, that culture. It's hard to get it throughout your building very quickly. And through doing a very common document like this, it sort of rocketed us forward to getting that K-5.
If your school is going through the designation, I will just say, if your school is going through the designation, having those working documents and having a place on the drive to put it saved us, because we're getting ready to have to go through redesignation. So we're already pulling through our past stuff.
And it's very important to have all of those resources because we have common bands in ELA. So 2nd grade talks about Bs. They do it through symbiosis. 4th grade has a B part in their reading and part of their curriculum. So they can see what 2nd grade did and build. They can build rigor and do something that's similar, but yet appropriate for those 4th grade standards that go up in the complexity. And I know that 1st and 3rd kind of does that a lot with habitats and adaptations, both behavioral and structural. And so you can build off of your colleagues, use each other, because the more that you do that, the more it's gonna become just what we do. It's not something added on your plate, it's just what we do. It's just how we do it every day, day in and day out. No questions? Yes. Oh, yeah. No, you're good.
I, first of all, love the culture that you guys have created around PBLs. I think that's awesome that so many people are on board with that. My struggle, I guess, when I'm doing PBLs is scheduling and time. Like, do I do it over the course of a whole week? Do I break it over weeks in one block of time? So what has worked for you guys in that?
Both and all. We might do a soul, which is a one afternoon thing on a STEM Friday, because we're doing our assessments at the beginning and we have some free time after that. The kids want to do well on that so they can get to the STEM learning. So it might be a little pop-up that just reinforces a standard. It can be a STEM task that maybe takes them several Fridays, or it can be a full PBL that takes weeks to a month to 2 or 3 months with our invention convention. So it's everything. It just depends upon what you're doing and what you want out of it. So some can be smaller, and then you can build to those bigger ones as well.
So it depends on your standard. Yeah. And what you need. Don't feel like it can only be a week. It can only be 2 weeks. You know, do what you need to do and what you have time in your schedule to do.
Because everybody's schedule's different. Yeah. So you just have to kind of find, well, maybe I only have 15 minutes, so we'll do this little piece. And then we'll table it, and then we'll do 15 more minutes. And it may take longer, but they're still learning in every piece of that.
I think that helps hearing it from other people too. I'm like, okay, I'm not alone in that.
Yes, absolutely.
And just trying to unify your curriculum.
Yeah.
Instead of, making it this little part, just a little piece of math or something in writing. And that's all about your colleagues, though, how much they're willing to work with you. And your principal, because, if you go off the curriculum that much, then she'll
And then as they get like older, like our 5th graders are doing a majority of that project on their own. We're just conferencing with them, and we say, okay, by this time you have to have this piece done because that's when your conference is.
We're also doing some out-of-school monthly STEM challenges, and we have started slowly implementing that. We actually got that idea from another presenter that was here. They heard it at Title I, and at that conference, and we kind of took it back and said, oh, we can do this. And we had done a little bit of it during COVID because we were like, okay, put it on social media, do this, here's a STEM challenge. Just still trying to engage our kids in that culture, even when they were at home. And then this year we've been very deliberate. We had a disguise a pumpkin. We had December, they did a light show, so it had to be something that lit up. And parents showed up, kids showed up. You could see the excitement as they were bringing these things in, wanting to show everybody as they were walking to class, look what I made. And it allows that collaboration and ownership by parents in their child's education.
So with Shark Tank, if you need community partners and your business partners, they are impressed. I will tell you. They come away from there, and I've gotten several partners because of it. And how can we help you? And it is a very impressive part of that. So I will say that's been wonderful.
That Shark Tank and Invention Convention is probably the number one thing I miss most about 5th grade. They asked our kids hard questions. I remember looking at my co-teachers and being like, oh my gosh, well, I didn't ask them that question. Can they answer that question? But because our kids were passionate about this project that they've been working on for months, I've never been more proud of my students than when they stood in front of these business professionals and had questions hammered at them and answered them so very well. Yeah, what do you want to know?
I understand the premise.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have found 3rd and 4th lends itself very well to PBLs, and 5th grade science standards do not.
Okay, so I was not the science teacher, but I know that he built this unit. It's like How Scientists Work unit, I believe is what it's called. So he tied it in with that unit, and then with social studies, we talked about, that's it, the Industrial Revolution. And we showed them like the silliest inventions. Like I remember showing them a prosthetic leg for a bird that somebody had designed, and just to like pique their interest. And like I was amazed when we were doing the research to start the project. Like there's some pretty silly inventions out there that have gotten, yes, that have gotten a, what's the word called? A patent. That have gotten a patent. And so we talked to them even about patents, and that's kind of how we hooked them. And then, we've had this one kid last year that won our Shark Tank. His family has chickens, and they had a hard time. What was he trying to do? I don't know, but this kid this year, he didn't like his having to get out of his hot tub to go get something. So his family built a life-size, has pictures of it at their actual hot tub, life-size. They took one of those big spools that the electrical company wraps the wire around and stood it up, and they had made a swinging arm so he could swing it back and forth and access stuff. And he's using this at his house. And then he made a mini model that he brought to school. But most of these come from problems at their own home. I don't remember. Was that this year? Yeah. And he went to Shark Tank, an ELL student.
I will say it equalizes every child. And that is something to my teacher heart that thrills me to the core and keeps me having a why. Because every kid can be included, from the one that struggles the most to the one that is the most brilliant.
And so it's their individualized project.
Yes.
It's not a group.
Yes.
Within the classroom, or is it extra?
Both. Portion of it they are doing in the classroom, but they're obviously building the prototype at home with their family. And then, you do have those students that can't afford or don't have that family support. And so we try to make sure they have a trifold board so they can at least draw their vision. And then, if you have the supplies and time in your classroom, just let them design it in like a makerspace area.
Looking from a younger grade teacher perspective going up, my third graders look forward to doing this. They get to go see, they invite all the other grades to get to come through and see these as well. So that gives them something to look forward to. And another really cool piece about it is that K4, we're giving them a problem when we're doing these PBLs. We're giving them the problem. These kids come up with their own problem. So by 5th grade, they're trained to know how to come up with a problem for a PBL.
And I believe that Invention Convention PBL is in this drive. I'll double check, and if not, I can upload it and you can see what standards he applied to that Invention Convention project.
And it's impressive.
I'm always blown away. I'm like, oh, I could use that at my house. It's super impressive what they come up with. Yes.
So their Invention Convention projects are what they bring to Shark Tank?
Yes. The winners. Teachers vote, or the 5th grade teachers will pick we have 3 5th grades, so they chose 2 kids from each 5th grade class to go on to Shark Tank. Well, thank you guys so much.